Marian apparitions have often involved children and young adults. On May 13, 1917, the first of 6 appearances of the Virgin Mary were made consecutively for each month. Our Lady of Fatima would arrive on the 13th before 3 children in Portugal. These children were Lucia dos Santos, Francisco Mato, and Jacinta Mato. She showed them 3 secrets through visions and advised the children to do penance and make sacrifices to save sinners.
And for each of the visions that they received came a little message. Very succinct, very clear, and easily understood by the children who received them. And like so many other Marian apparitions, the kids who were basically innocent, pious but very innocent, they didn't know what to do with the information that Mary had been giving them, and so they kept it to themselves.
The visions these children were said to have had were not of vibrant fields of roses. Instead, these visions were frightening, much to the surprise of Christians.
In the case of several Marian apparitions which have appeared to children, having the child regurgitate over and over the same story without any flaws, it's next to impossible, because almost always an adult will ask the same question in numerous different ways, to the point where the child can be totally perplexed and maybe misstep. This is not the case in the narratives of each of these 3 young Portuguese children.
The first secret was revealed through images lasting only a moment of demons, fire, and tortured human souls, images that match the descriptions of hell, a message of what might become of those who sin. The next was a message of prevention.
The second was a prediction, really, of World War I and World War II, in a way, unless Russia converted.
1917 was a catastrophic moment in the experience of the Russian people. The communist revolution basically took over that population. The communists, one of the first orders of business was to try and remove any sense of religiosity from the people. And so to pray for the conversion of Russia, to re-Christianize it, this was one of the goals that Mary said that people should be praying for.
Our Lady of Fatima told the children that they must convert Russia to the Immaculate Heart in order to avoid war and persecution against the Church. Some members of the Church and public said that the second secret was incomplete, or that it wasn't real at all. The third and final secret was revealed with another image, stirring up a great deal of discussion.
The so-called third secret is something that presented a real challenge to the authorities who heard it. Now, the third secret it's not a very long narrative, but it's a little bit more complicated than the first 2. It involves some mysterious language, and the suggestion is that a man in white would suffer. Now, this man in white, a lot of ink has been spilt over who this is, but the presumption is that it was the Pope.
The vision was of a man thought to be the Holy Father, led to a mountaintop and executed on his knees by soldiers armed with bullets and arrows. The interpretation of this vision was that the Pope or some other religious figure would be assassinated.
You have a real symbolic moment based in a real concrete tragedy when Pope John Paul II had an attempt made on his life in St. Peter's Square. The bullet that was extracted from him, he vowed to place in the crown of Our Lady of Fatima, and it rests there today. I mean, it's really kind of a high moment in which a pope acknowledged Mary's intervention on behalf of his life.
The young girl, Lucia, said the secret could be released to the public in 1960. The Vatican withheld the secret until the summer of 2000.
Despite the fact that Lucia had, one of the people who had the apparition, said it could be released after the 1960s, because Mother Church, ever caring for our souls and ever caring for our education in the faith, said that keep it until the time that it'll be more clearly understood, without any level of misunderstanding, without any level of horror or anything along those lines. And that's really the important thing to understand. It wasn't released until that time simply because it didn't want to cause more problems for the church.
When the document was released, there was an explanation given by then Cardinal Ratzinger, who's now Pope Benedict. And in his explanation for why these messages were confined to only a few people for so long, I think his explanation is not only legitimate, it's the right one. He said that Mary is not about sensationalism. She's about pointing to her Son. And if we can understand what these messages entail from the perspective of a deep Christology, a deep interest in Jesus, then we're seeing the messages in a better light. And it just took a long time in order for us to come up with this kind of perspective.
Next, we'll hear what happened in Guadalupe when Our Lady arrived there. We'll also hear of the people of Medjugorje and their visits from Mary when Mysteries of the Church continues.